The Buddha said that what has come to be, namely the suffering, what has come to be, if you know how to look deeply into the nature of that and identify the source of food, the source of nutriment that has brought it to you, you are already on the path of emancipation. You can identify the source of nutriment that has been used to feed the pain, the ill being, and then you know already you are already on the path of healing. So looking deeply into the pain, into the suffering, into the ill being, we can find the source, the roots of ill being in terms of nutriment. And we know that the Buddhist teaching is based on the Four Noble Truths. And the first one is ill being. Dukkha is the word in Sanskrit. It means ill being. And you may ask what is so noble about ill being, the first noble truth. The answer is that when you look deeply into ill being and understand ill being, you find a way out. You find a way of transformation and healing. You have to begin with ill being. And looking deeply into the nature of ill being, you will find a second noble truth, which is the way of life that has led to ill being. So it's a kind of path, but the wrong path, the path that leads to ill being. So the second noble truth, the making of ill being. Is what we discover when we look into the nature of ill being. It is described as a path, the way of living, full of wrong perceptions, wrong thinking, wrong speech, wrong action, and so on, that has led to ill being. And then when you have seen the making of ill being in terms of the path, you can see the other path that goes in the opposite direction. If there is a path leading to ill being, there should be a path leading to well-being. So the fourth noble truth is just the opposite of the making of ill being. It is the transformation of ill being, the end of ill being, the path leading to the end of ill being, the path of joy and happiness, the path of healing, the path of joy and happiness. And here you can use the word well-being, the path of well-being. So if you follow the path of ill-being, you get ill-being. And there is another path which is the opposite of this path. And when you see this path, you can at the same time see the opposite path. And that path of well-being, of course, leads to well-being. And well-being means the cessation of ill-being. It's like the absence of darkness means the presence of the light. So in the scripture, the third noble truth is the cessation of ill-being. It means the existence of well-being. So according to the teaching of interbeing that we have learned, if ill-being is there, something else should be there also, and that is well-being. We have learned that in order for the left to be, the right has to be there at the same time. In order for the above to be, the below should be there. So things inter-are. And if we recognize the presence of ill-being, suffering, we have to recognize at the same time the existence of happiness, of well-being. So well-being is possible. It's wonderful to know that well-being is possible, happiness is possible. And if happiness is possible, there should be a way, a path leading to happiness. And that is what we call the noble path, the noble eightfold path. The second is also a path, but it's not so noble. It's, you can call it an ignoble path. And this is a noble path. And the path of well-being begins with right view, right view. Right view is a kind of insight, the kind of deep vision of reality. And sometimes that right view is called the insight of interbeing. Interbeing. It's very deep. The Noble Eightfold Path begins with right view. It means a deep kind of vision, a deep kind of insight. And that is why one day the monk Katyayana came to ask the Buddha this question. Dear teacher, you often speak of right view. What is exactly right view? Right view can be described in many ways, but that day the Buddha gave a very special definition of right view. He said right view is a kind of insight that transcends the notion of being and non-being. If you are caught in the notion of being, you don't have that insight. If you are caught by the insight of non-being, you don't have that insight either. And this is something possible for us to touch. When we look at a flower, we tend to think that the flower is. The flower belongs to the realm of being. And we believe it to be the truth. The flower is. And the word to be, the verb to be is the verb that we use hundreds of times every day. But we do not understand really the meaning of the word to be. When we look into this flower, we see that this flower is made only of non-flower elements. Like the sunshine is not flower. But without the sunshine, a flower cannot be. You see a cloud. Cloud is not flower. But without cloud, a flower cannot be. And the rain and the soil, the earth, the minerals, everything in the cosmos have come together in order to help the flower to manifest as a wonder. And we know that the flower cannot be by herself alone. The flower has to interbe with the cloud, the rain, the sunshine, the earth, and so on. So it is impossible to be. It is possible to interbe. So to be is impossible, and to interbe is possible, and that is reality. Unfortunately, the word interbeing is not yet there in the dictionary. So this is kind of meditation that lead us to and help us to learn to think in such a way that we can get closer to the truth. In the verb interbeing, in the verb interbe, there is still the word being. But because of the prefix inter, we transcend the notion of being. Because we know that to be is impossible. To be by yourself is impossible. Man cannot be by themselves alone. Man has to interbe with non-man elements, namely animal, vegetable, and minerals. And if you remove all the vanishes. So man cannot be. Man can only interbe. And I think that this is the deepest teaching on ecology. In order for man to be, you have to protect the being of other species. And the Diamond Sutra is a sutra that urges us to transcend four notions. The first notion is the notion of self. And if we want to remove the notion of self, we have to see that self is made only of non-self elements. When I say myself, there's something wrong in it. I imagine that there is a self that can exist independently from the rest of the world. But if I look deeply, I see I am made of parents, ancestors, education, food, civilization, and so on. And if I remove these elements from me, there's no longer any I, any me. So the self, the separate self, is an illusion. And that is why when we look at something, we have to try to see the nature of interbeing in that thing. Before seeing that nature of interbeing, we have not seen it really. When I was a novice, my teacher taught me how to bow to the Buddha. In order to have a true communication with the Buddha, you should see the nature interbeing of the Buddha and your own nature interbeing. Because usually we think that the Buddha is not you. He is something wholly other than you, entirely other than you. And you are something entirely other than the Buddha. That's the way we think. We think in terms of selves. But in fact, a Buddha is made only of non-Buddha elements. Like a lotus flower. She's made of non-lotus elements, including the mud. The Buddha had also suffered. And he knew how to understand suffering and to transform suffering. So when you look into the Buddha, you can see the non-Buddha element suffering that has been used to make a Buddha. When you look into a lotus flower, you should be able to see the mud in it. You should smile to the mud in the lotus. You should smile to the cloud in your tea. The tea cannot be without a cloud. So that is meditation. You are led to look deeply into reality, to discover the nature of interbeing and transcend the notion of self as something that can exist independently from the rest. So before you bow to the Buddha, you have to contemplate the nature of interbeing in the Buddha and in you. And my teacher gave me a verse to learn by heart. And I have to breathe in and out with the verse in order to begin to see that nature of interbeing between the Buddha and me before I can bow to him, to the Buddha. The one who bows and the one who is bowed to are both by nature empty. Empty of a self, of separate self. Dear Buddha, I am going to bow to you, but I know that you are empty of a self. You are made of non-you element, and that is why I can see me in you. If you have not seen that, the bowing will not create any kind of communication. You have to bow in the light of interbeing in order for the communication to be possible between you and the Buddha, between you and Jesus Christ. God and man inter-are. Without man there is no God. Without God there is no man. When I look into myself, I see I am made of non-me elements, and in me there is element Buddha. So there is no complex. I am not asking the Buddha to give me some Buddhahood, some happiness. Because I have the Buddha nature in me, the capacity to understand, to love, to liberate myself. And that is why the nature, the reality of interbeing is very important. That is the right view. And with right view, we are free from all kind of discrimination.